Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Keith Menconi. Today we're bringing you another live on-air interview from the morning show with Terry Engel. And just a little bit of a heads up, really not too much of a Taiwan angle on this one per se. Instead, we'll be hearing from a morning show favorite who's going to be giving us some insights on the ins and the outs of business networking. So, this is really applicable anywhere, these kinds of skills that we'll be talking about. Not exactly a Taiwan topic, but still helpful. And I'm sure we've got a lot of very entrepreneurial-minded listeners out there. So I'm sure this will be right up a lot of your alleys. And anyway, the guest that we're going to have on is something of a fixture here in Taiwan, especially in the expat community. So we can kind of call that a Taiwan tie-in if we really need one. Anyway, enough stalling on my part. I take you now to March 23rd at 10 a.m. on ICRT's morning show. Here's Terry Engel.
ICRT FM 100 Human League kicking off the 10 o'clock here. Time for us to move our way into the extended interview segment that we have on Wednesdays here. Our opportunity to sit down with some folks from Taipei who are doing good stuff, who are doing different things, and kind of delve into the topic a little bit more than just a few moments here. So we call it our extended interview segment. And Keith, what's going on this week?
Well, today we're actually going to be bringing back a guy that we've had on the show before. And I guess at this point we can maybe refer to him as the morning show's international business guru.
Oh, right.
That's the title that we're going to bestow.
That's what we're going to give him. Okay.
That's what we're going to give him. And the reason that we can give him that is because actually the first time that he was on, we put this segment up online. Most downloaded Taiwan Talk ever.
Oh,
ever.
wow.
A lot of downloads for
Wow.
that one. Really up there.
Does it count? Because I downloaded it like 45,000 times. So.
He has a lot of friends. Let's just say that. No.
But that actually supports the topic that we're going to be getting into today if he does have that many friends.
Okay.
Well, let's introduce him first. The guy that we're talking about here that you just heard from is Mr. Stephen Parker. He is the executive director of the British Chamber of Commerce in Taipei. And he's also just kind of a man about town in this global village, this international business world. Worked in a lot of different places. A lot of different places. So a great perspective to get.
I have two issues here.
Terry,
I have a lot of issues, but I have two issues.
First and foremost.
The first, man about town. Mm-hmm. I mean, from when I was born, I was very young. I always wanted to be called a man about town, so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, there
it
you
makes
go.
me sound like I'm wearing something. I'm wearing spats or something.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm not wearing spats.
Okay.
That's my shins, Keith. What was the second issue? I can't remember. It's both of you anyway.
Well, welcome, Steve. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about
Networking,
which kind of, as Keith said, supports what we talked about last time. When you were here last time, we talked a little bit about job skills needed to enter the international job market, whether it be abroad or whether it be for an international company here in Taiwan. And today's talk kind of supports that because I guess now that we've developed the skills or sort of thought about the skills, we're going to take them out and flaunt them. And how do we get those skills across? How do we meet the right people to kind of talk to and that sort of thing in networking?
How do we get as many friends as Steve Parker? That's the real question.
That's right.
Well, I collect one or two friends from every job I've had.
And then you tell them to click on your podcasts.
That's true.
How important is the term networking? I mean, it's a very broad term, but I mean, how important is it to jobs, especially if we relate it to the international market or we relate it to somebody who's kind of fresh out of university or something like that? What does networking mean and how important is that?
To be honest, I mean, I've done a couple of presentations about this recently, and it's to me, networking is a lot of fun. But the thing about the word, the minute you say networking to people, it's like something you're doing to somebody, you know?
Yes.
I'm going to go and network you now,
Yeah.
you know? Hey, Terry, excuse me while I network with you for 5 minutes or so because
Right.
I want something. I'm trying to, and I just, I try to tell people that for me, networking is just something it should be natural. It should be easy. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be something that makes people feel creeped out, you know? The difference between networking and stalker, there's a line.
Yeah, there is.
All those girls were just trying to network with us.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to network with everybody. Really, I didn't.
And the irony of networking in a three men alone in a dark room talking on the radio station about how to network with people. So, but it's a kind of network. I mean, there's at least 4 or 5 people out there who are listening to this, probably 4 or 5 million.
There's lots. Don't you be worried about that.
And the other ones who supported me, and I want to thank them for downloading my podcast.
So you're here to talk about networking today, and you've kind of got a presentation that you have been working on. Maybe you can just tell us, first of all, why you developed this networking presentation, and then you can kind of give us maybe the overall theme of it and how you've put it together.
If I'm being really, really honest, I mean, the why. Often the why is because you work in business, people ask you to do a presentation, and you have to fill it with something. So I got to be really honest. But then I thought about it. And I thought, well, and when you're doing these presentations, I thought, well, what can I give people that would be actually really, really kind of useful? And I think that networking is one of those things that people sort of, it feels like something you're supposed to do, and everybody's told you got to go and network and you got to go and do all this stuff. But a lot of people, you say you have to network, and they say, oh, yeah, I know how to network because you go to events. Okay, you go to the event, all right? Or you sign up for LinkedIn, or you sign up for Facebook, and these are all forms of networking. But how do you actually network when you're on those kinds of things?
Right.
And to me, I think networking is a really, really simple thing. You just treat everybody as though they're worthy of respect.
Right.
Now, that's my basic kind of premise when I talk about networking. Someone's worthy of respect. If they're busy talking to someone else, you don't interrupt them.
But there's a marked difference, though, between, when I talk to my parents, I talk to them with respect. There's a difference between going to my mom's house for dinner and going to, a meeting of the Radio Disc Jockeys International. My purpose is clearly different.
I agree. Your purpose is different. And I mean, it's good to have your purpose in mind. I agree. And anybody who will talk about networking says you got to have your purpose. You got to know what you want to get. But if you only, and this is the thing that I always talk about, if you only have that purpose in mind, if I come and talk to Terry, I mean, I've known you off and on for, must be 8 years now, I suppose.
Yep.
Now, if the first time I'd met you, I'd said, my purpose is I just want to get on the radio and talk about networking 8 years from now.
Right.
Well, I've been very successful.
Exactly. I'd say, wow, you're good at that, because I didn't even see it coming.
But I think, I suppose if I'm going back a step with networking, I always think, people think I've got to go to this thing, like they'll go to a Rotary event, or they'll go to some kind of, a presidential speech or something like that. And they go to these rooms and they have a purpose. I sell a product. I want to find the number of people in this room that I can sell that product to. And I always think that when you're talking about networking, that's the wrong way to approach it. I always think that networking for me is you've got to think about what it is that you as a person, you as a company, you as a something have to offer. I'm in this room. People want to spend time. Okay, they've got to be here. They've got to be there for 30, 40, 50 minutes. They've got to spend some time. If you're just going to bang on to them about, hi, I'm Keith Manconi, and this is my latest product that I'd like to sell you, they're going to walk away. So you have to me, networking really is about thinking about what the other person wants at this time.
Let me kind of talk to you about what I think about when I think about networking, and tell me, maybe you can kind of critique my outlook on this. I think about networking as getting outside of what you currently have. In other words, okay, so let's say I go to a meeting at ICRT, okay, or I go to a big, we have a station-wide meeting or whatever. That is sort of my self-contained sort of network right there. And I don't think about that as much as networking as I think about expanding that. So maybe to expand on my network means to also go to a conference about radio, or it means to go to an event that you are holding because you're a guest coming on in the program. Is that a fair assessment to say that network are canals outside of where you are right now?
I would say that you should probably do this presentation for me in future.
Oh, is that good? Is it? Oh, wow.
It's very, very good. I hadn't even gone that complicated, but you're absolutely right. Networking is about building. I mean, I suppose if you take a step back again. And really this is kind of towards the end of the presentation, so maybe we'll get to this later on, but the networking for me is about sitting down and thinking about who are the kinds of people and who are the kinds of activities that for whatever purpose, And I think you have to think about your purpose. A lot of people don't think about what it is they want. They just kind of like, I'd like to make some friends. What am I going to do? And they might go to different things and try to make, but if you think about the kinds of people you want to meet, the kinds of activities you want to do, I tell a story about networking and say, when I first came to Taiwan, I didn't really know anybody. What do? I know how to play golf. So I joined a golf club. I mean, it's not that complicated.
Right.
You start from something that you know. You start from something that you enjoy. You talked about going to a radio conference.
Right. That'd be something that I enjoy. Yeah, no,
you know that, and
you've
got something in common with the people that you're in that room with.
Right. You make a great point, and that also kind of helps with the idea of purpose, meaning that I'm not going to go and try and get something out of somebody every time I go somewhere, but I kind of think as everything I do as part of my networking, and in some way it's going to it may not necessarily add to my job, but it may add to another aspect of my life, like satisfy, my hobby in terms of golf, or gives me another focus, and all of that together kind of helps the direction of not just my job, but my life, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
So I again, taking that step back to just arriving in Taiwan, you got to think about, what is the network that I need? What do I need to do right now?
Mm-hmm.
When you first arrive in a country or in a new place or in a new job or in a new city, whatever, your first requirement is to have people to have some kind of social interaction with. So, okay, build that network,
Right.
And how do you do that? It's really simple. You go and do things that you like to do.
Right.
Right?
Excellent. Well, we'll leave it right on that note for a moment, and when we come back, we're going to kind of work our way through your presentation, or I don't want to put borders on it or parameters around it as a presentation that you're doing, but kind of walk us through what networking means to you, and specifically, how you learned that. We'll get to that in just a moment here.
Everybody at home, open up the PowerPoint slides that we sent you. We're going to have graphs, lots of data, so get ready for all that.
Okay, and no, we won't, so don't confuse anybody, Keith. We'll be back in just a moment here on ICRT.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning indeed. It's time to get back to the morning show with Terry.
I can't wait to wake up.
Right here on ICRT.
We do return to the morning show here. We're amidst our Wednesday extended interview segment in which we're talking with Steve Parker about networking.
Indeed. To follow up on that.
That's one of the things that people do in networking. Don't make somebody uncomfortable.
Sorry.
I just made Keith uncomfortable.
Lesson the first. Yeah, well, so in this next segment, we're going to be hearing his patented formula for winning friends and influencing people, and he got a little presentation prepared for us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to play the video for everyone now. Sorry.
And we're your studio audience. We're your eager pupils.
So, we talked a little bit about in the first segment, we talked about, why do networking. And I don't want to go into that in a big deal. Everybody knows why they want to network. You either want to make friends, you want to make business contacts, you want to help yourself, you want to develop your industry, your contacts for later on. There are lots of reasons to do networking. I'm going to assume that we all want to network, right? We all want to have some kind of network, except for those really intelligent people you were talking about this morning.
That's right.
Who just don't want to talk to anybody.
That's right.
Because it's going to make them unhappy.
That's right.
Putting those people aside for the moment, we all need a network of some kind. And I think people make it really complicated. They say, yes, you got to have a plan. Yes, you want to think, how do I want to get out and reach to the world? But I kind of and this is what I do in this presentation that I've given in the past. And I just basically say, everything that I learned about networking, I learned from my mum. Mm-hmm. As you're growing up, and it's just because she was just an extremely practical person. And she had all of those kind of she was one of those mums that had those cliches for every moment.
Yeah.
She always kind of
That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Exactly. But as a man who's spent time working in the business world, and I've realized that the older I get, the simpler I think things really are. Mm-hmm. You just we said before, treat people with respect. You don't lie. You do all these sorts of things. And I realized the more I thought about this, that this is the stuff that my mum was teaching me when I was about 3 years old.
Right.
And I I share these with the people that I generally do this presentation with.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to share some of those.
Please do. So this is
Pearls of wisdom.
Everything you learned about networking, you learned from your mom.
Correct.
All right.
And if that's not a good title for a book, I don't know what is.
So we have Mrs. Parker to thank for this.
We do have Mrs. Parker to thank for this.
All right, perfect.
So I mean, one of the things, you know, so why don't I just throw out a couple of these and I just maybe ask you guys what you think these might mean pertaining to networking and dealing with people.
Okay. All right.
How about that?
Sounds perfect.
All right. So the first one she used to say to me all the time, and remember she's Scottish Presbyterian from Glasgow.
Okay.
So I won't do the voice because that would be disrespectful.
Okay.
But, so one of her things she always said to me was, okay, Jack's as good as his master.
Jack
is as good as his master. There was an apostrophe in there in case you can't hear it.
All right. So, here's what I take away. And, see, now I'm gonna be wrong. Jack's as good as his
wouldn't be
master.
the first time you've been
Jack
wrong on this
must
show.
have been a dog, and he's only as good as what his master teaches him. So you're only as good as what somebody teaches you, your teacher. Am I way off?
Well, it's an interpretation. Okay. And I thank you for that.
All right,
Nothing's wrong in the school of life.
All right, Keith, we'll have to get you to save us.
Carrying on the nothing's wrong in the school of life spirit of all this, I guess whatever your guiding principle is, you know, I guess that would be your master. So you can never really exceed what your guiding principle is, what the rules that you're following.
You guys are both really North American. You're thinking kind of high concept stuff.
Okay.
And, no, well, basically, one of the things that my mum always, and I remember her talking about this every single year, Jack's as good as his master, meaning basically for her, there was nobody in a room that was less important than anybody else.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So she would, you know, if she
The
would...
class system, that's what we were forgetting about.
You're forgetting about the class system.
Right.
She came from somewhere where it was fairly important, actually. you know?
Right.
So for her, it was just really, and I've taken that principle that you know, if I go to, let's say I'm going to events, I organize a lot of events myself. I mean, you don't wait for the president to arrive before you start networking.
Right.
You talk to everybody in the room. You make sure that the people who are serving the drinks are happy. You make sure that the people who are working on the food are happy. You talk to the staff that are working reception, etc. You make sure that everybody understands that each of them are valued in the same way.
Right. Not just the keynote speaker or your guest of honor or the person that people are there to see, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think people see that. I mean, you see it a lot of times. I mean, you've seen it where you, like, you know, I don't know, like musicians and stuff like that who'll kind of come out and hang with a band beforehand and talk to people and kind of like, you know.
Oh, there's no question in working on, and I guess to a certain degree, a rock concert is a type of networking event as well. But you'll see where, everybody's just concerned about the artists themselves. You're right, and kind of nobody else gets any of the attention, or nobody else wants to talk to anybody but those people, sort of thing. Yeah,
right.
Interesting.
Right, and you never know. You know, Herbie Hancock might be the pianist.
Yeah, right.
You know, and you're just ignoring him. I mean, that's happened a number of times where I've talked to people in a room and I've realized that this person is actually the CEO of whatever company.
Yeah, right.
But it just they happened to be coming out today because the president was there and they were just taking a back seat. But then you've got a chance to meet with them, find out what they do. And, you know, I don't want to say ordinary people, but, you know, people at different strata, they have bosses, they have people that they work for, they have connections, and I think you should never be rude to anybody and treat everybody with respect.
Well, you make a good point, and maybe you'll touch on this, but you're right. By networking with somebody, if I network with you, Steve, or you and I sort of
you can
have
say
a
the
conversation.
He doesn't like emotion, does he?
But we've had this networking going for 8 years now. It's a beautiful networking.
The point that I'm getting at is that by entering your network, I also enter your network. Meaning that by, becoming one of your contacts, I, by proxy, kind of become contacts with a lot of people that you know.
Correct.
So you can step over that janitor straight to the manager.
Yeah, that's right.
what we're getting at.
And I did notice that there were a number of years where Terry would go to parties where I wasn't invited. And they were my friends.
That's interesting.
I can't help with the invites I get.
Right.
To the next one.
We got to something real there, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got to go now. So here's another one. This one's more simple. Yeah. So my mother had a phrase that she would say at a particular moment, and she would just say, no good will come of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess in terms of networking, I would think that there's, and again, don't ask my cynical nature, but I would say, there's there's a point where you have to end every kind of friendship you have. Say, don't ask me. I'm terrible. But I would say there's a point where, you've kind of hassled somebody long enough, or you've followed somebody, you've tried to talk to them enough times that it's just, you're not going to get anything or anything sort of not advantageous, because that would imply that you're looking to take advantage of somebody, but there's nothing that's going to flourish from a certain relationship. Is that
okay? Hold on to that thought.
Okay.
Well, I guess just given that a lot of the theme of this is treating people decently, no good will come of the fact of treating somebody bad.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of the opposite.
Using them.
See, Keith has what we call flexibility.
Yeah, right.
He's now gone from North America into my kind of European mindset. So basically, my mother tells a story, and in this story, basically, she says her aunt had some kind of connection to the fairies, is what she says. I don't know what that means, but basically, someone that they had given, and if you know the story of Les Mis, where the guy stays over and he steals the silverware and stuff like that, well, this happened exactly to the aunt of my mum, and she said, no good will come of it. And the guy was found kind of dead in the snow 2 days later. So basically, her point is that, you do bad things to people, bad things will happen to you.
Right, okay.
Karma is it
It's a
comes
force
back.
in the universe.
Yeah. So just, if you throw it out there, you put it out there, then it will come back to you.
Right. I live by that mantra, but I just didn't pick up on it right there.
Yeah. One of the things I do talk about in my networking sessions is that, it's okay. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to live it.
Yeah. No, you're right. Well, we'll imagine that that's how it was for me.
What would be an example of something that would give you bad networking karma? Like, what's a way to mistreat somebody in networking?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about it before, where you've got, if someone comes up to you, let's say we talked about the Jack's as good as his master, yeah? And if someone comes up to you and just says hello, and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm too busy right now.
Yeah, right.
Or you turn a shoulder to them, or like, do I know you?
Imagining that this person is not worth your time, and more often than not, they'll have a connection to, whatever it is
somebody
that you're looking for. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
This raises kind of a jerk question, though. I mean, it's always, it's all well and good to try to be as nice to people as possible and to be as generous with your time as possible. But at a certain point, the conversation does have to end. Is there a graceful way to step out of the conversation when you want to move on to somewhere else? I mean, is that something that you need to think about?
Yeah. You've always got to have an exit strategy, Keith. You really do need to have an exit strategy.
Telling the American.
Yeah. No, but it's true. You've got to be graceful. Excuse me. Sometimes there's no easy way to do it, but you've got to have an exit strategy, and often it just has to be simply that, excuse me.
Yeah.
And that's it. Excuse me. Thank you.
That kind of goes.
It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, right.
But then you can't just turn and have a muffin, Wouldn't that look kind of bad?
Yeah. The exit strategy has to be a well thought out exit strategy, Keith.
But is that acceptable in the business community that, you've gone to an event, in my case, networking in the radio industry, and I've been talking to a guy about muffins for the past 15 minutes. Is that acceptable to say, excuse me, it's been nice talking to you about muffins. I have got some other people that I've got to talk to. Is that acceptable, or do people immediately go, oh, what an idiot?
Do you mean to the person who's leaving?
Yeah.
Well, this brings up two issues, actually. Because in networking, there's the person you're talking about, who is you, who needs to extricate themselves from the situation. And then there's the person, and there's that guy.
Yeah.
There's the guy who talks about muffins for 15, 20 minutes.
Because at every event, there is a guy that talks about muffins, or talks about his, Star Wars collectibles or something
or perhaps talks about, physics and suicide for 25 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Just much like we were doing earlier. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's always that guy. So how is it okay to be kind of curt with them and say, excuse me, but I've got to move on and do something else?
I'm often in the lucky position where an event is being run by me or an organization that I'm involved in.
It's a built-in excuse.
So I can kind of excuse me, I've got some other people that I need to take care of, and I'll come back to you and talk to you later, or something like this. And it's easier for me. Networking is an entire thing. It's not about one person, two people. Mm-hmm. And this is where someone like me, who is a host of many, many, many networking events, I need to be aware of the people that are in the room and what's going on. So often it'd be my job to pull the person out of a situation like that. Now, if you don't, so networking is about all of the skills you need to network. One of the skills is how to be a gracious host, how to be a good host, how to be the person who can look after people in a room. You know, and if Muffin Guy is this is going to stick, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a Muffin Guy talking to somebody, you got it. Somebody should be getting in there to, well, you know, let me take you over to this guy because I know that this guy's really interested in muffins.
Yeah, right, exactly. Directing the energies in the right way.
Right. And moving people around or noticing something like that, especially if it's a guest of yours, but, you know, noticing something like that.
This is another great point, which I'm sure we could probably talk another whole bit. We'll try not to, but you're right, is the host really creating a good flow of energy so that the same people are not sort of stuck talking to the same people that, you know, for the entirety of the night. And that conversation is not wholly about muffins for the entirety of the night and whatnot. So the host takes on a responsibility of creating a flow, a network flow within the event. So,
right.
Okay, good.
And this also comes into networking. Networking is not just about you going to other people's events. You, as a networker, should also be able to create events that people will enjoy being at.
Right.
You know, it's not just about
creating environments.
I mean, I go to other people's events all the time, but I also spend a lot of my life having to build events that I think and I hope will be valuable for people to be at.
Right. And events can mean going out for dinner with somebody as well. It doesn't have to be a big thing. All right, excellent.
All right. So here's another one for you, and Keith's getting it now. I'm just the remedial student in the room.
Yeah,
Terry, we hope you'll, I'll give this one to Keith first, and then you have a chance to think about it before it goes, yeah? So another thing my mother used to say to me all the time was, if you can go to sleep not owing anybody, then you are rich.
I'm going to leave that to you, Keith.
I actually have to admit, I read your presentation ahead of time.
I know you did.
Well, there you go. All right, so it's left to me. Okay, so if you go to bed not owing anybody, well, I guess just don't take advantage of too many favors off. You've got to give back as much as people are offering you, I'm guessing.
It's fairly close to that. Keith, do you want to pipe in with the exact phrase that I've used beneath that?
With my photographic memory, yeah. Well, I mean, just bringing it directly into the whole networking context, well, you would be giving people favors and people would be giving you favors, and, you know, you don't want that hanging over your head for too long. You want to make sure that as fast as possible you can reciprocate when somebody does something nice for you.
I think that's not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah, okay, good.
You know, pretty good. In a simple thing, we talked about events and stuff like that. And as a head of a chamber of commerce, we have events, and some of these events, people pay for those events, you know. And if I go to somebody else's event and there's a bill or an invoice, I'll pay that straight away. Yeah, you don't, and that's a metaphor, but it's also an actual thing. You don't leave things hanging, you know. If somebody, if somebody comes up to you and asks you for a favor or they need something, and you say you'll do it, you know, do it.
Yeah, right.
Don't leave it hanging out there.
You need to have a little bit of accountability. Something I found in my trip to L.A., that right there is just there's just no accountability at all. But yeah, I'll meet you tomorrow at 8 o'clock and we'll talk about that, you know, and then you don't ever see them again. But
that could be another technique, Terry. Yeah. You're the muffin guy in that scenario.
Oh, man. Recognition of being the muffin guy. Hopefully that's the next point. At what point do you realize, no, wait, I'm the muffin guy.
We had a breakthrough on the morning show. This is an exciting segment.
This next one that my mum, it took me a long time to work out what this was because I didn't know what a tinker was. But, and it leads on from that point that you were just talking about. You know, my mum used to say often, you know, if ifs and ands were pots and pans, there'd be no room in the world for tinkers. Now, perhaps, Keith, since you've read my presentation, you would like to explain what a tinker is.
I did have to read pretty closely to get this one. So a tinker is a guy that makes pots and pans, I believe, like a metal tinker. And so the ifs and ands here being the excuses, the buts, the reasons why we couldn't follow through on stuff. And so I guess the metaphor would be you won't get an actual pot and pan because we want pots and pans in this metaphor. Is that correct?
Wow.
Pots and pans are a good thing in this metaphor?
You were so far ahead of the game, Keith.
There you go.
And now, no, you're right. You are right. It's quite a confusing metaphor, but it's just, you know, it's really leading on from what Terry was talking about just now. You know, it's easy to say something, it's very easy to say, hey, I'll see you then. Hey, I'll catch up with you then. Or, hey, let's catch up. Or it's really good to see you. Or let's go for dinner. Or let's catch up. And, and these are the ifs and ands, You're throwing them out there, but there's no follow-up.
Yeah, empty promises.
If these were all actual,
pots and pans,
then there'd be no room for tinkers because you wouldn't need to. There'd be so many pots and pans in the world, but people don't follow through.
So in the UK, your form of currency is pots and pans, I take it?
That is correct. Steve Parker, the executive director of the British Chamber of Commerce, has rewritten the British economy.
At one time, I'm sure it was, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a great point. That's the one thing that probably disappoints me most, and maybe quite possibly it's a reflection on my own networking skills, but the fact that there's just so many empty promises. There's so many empty gestures a lot of times at these events. Well, well, here's my email and, send me something about that. And you do, and you never hear back from them or, whatever the case is, especially when it comes to job searching. A lot of people who are listening are probably, ready to enter the job market and whatnot. And that's got to be the most frustrating element of it is exactly this, these empty gestures of no follow through. So this will connect back to the one you said before, which is if you don't want any empty gestures thrown towards you, don't make those empty gestures.
Exactly. I agree.
I see where this is all coming together now.
It's nice. There's a circle, right?
Nice.
Yeah. We're learning here. Mm-hmm. We're learning. We're sharing. I just being snickered at on the radio. This whole thing about the ifs and ands of pots and pans, don't promise what you can't deliver. And I think that's just networking. That's not just networking. That's good business sense and good personal sense. And I think a lot of people's personal problems, a lot of people's business problems all boil down to this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Don't promise what you... Yep. One more?
Yep.
Got time for one more before the break? All right. So, this is one that's... I'm a dog person. I have dogs. A lot of people have children, etc. My mother would often say to me, you can tell a lot about a person by the way they treat their A, dogs, B, children, etc. I'm gonna throw this to Keith since he's read the presentation.
Okay, Keith.
Let's see if I can still remember this. Yeah, so this kind of gets back to talk to everybody, treat everybody in the room equally, and talk to everybody. Show them the respect that they deserve. And if you're talking to a lower level employee like they're worth nothing, other people will notice that, and your bad reputation will spread. Is what I take away from that.
He has read this presentation, actually.
Well, and this is probably one of the very interesting points about that we've hit on so far that I see so often. You're only as good as your team. I don't know if that is part of this or what we're talking about, but really somebody who's representing a company is only as good as they build their team up to be. I so often see people who represent, let's say, an organization or a band or, a golf team or anything where they're just doing nothing but kind of cutting down the people around them in an effort, I suppose, to carve out their own sort of place. And it just has the opposite effect. It just really has the opposite effect.
I agree with you. And I think that's an extension of this metaphor.
Yeah.
It really is. You can tell a lot about how someone really is in their core by the way they treat the people around them, especially the people who are in weaker positions.
Especially the people in weaker positions.
So again, the metaphor is dogs and children, but really it applies to, as Keith used the term, lesser employees. I'm not quite sure where Keith is coming from here. But,
lower status. Lower status.
Yeah, you said strata. Strata was strata. That's Steve. Okay, well, Steve, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put all this that we've collected here, and we're going to come back after the break, and we're going to kind of have you set up something between Keith and I, some sort of scenario, and we'll try and put some of what you've said into use or misuse, and we'll kind of analyze that is what we'll do. So hang on a second. Steve Parker, Executive Director of the British Chamber of Commerce here in Taipei, joining us on our extended interview for Wednesday. We'll take a break and be back in a moment. It's the Morning Show with Terry on ICRT.
1,
2,
3. Okay. Here we go. Now you know. So here we go. Back to the best music on the island.
I like it.
On ICRT.
And before we get to that music, we get back to our extended interview here. We've got Steve Parker joining us, talking a little bit about networking. We've heard some of the things your mom has said and how you apply that to networking in the business community. And we're going to kind of turn it over to you here, and Keith and I will try and put a little bit of it in practice in a little mock scenario. You know, business meetings love these mock scenarios. So here we go. We're going to kind of try and do. We'll let you set it up, though, Steve.
Okay. I don't have great expectations for you two, but let's get
Set the bar low. I appreciate that.
So basically, let's take the theme. We talked about Muffin Guy, right? So I say let's an evening reception. I've organised it. I'm the host.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an evening reception. It's to celebrate kind of foods in the UK.
Okay, foods in the UK.
Foods in the UK.
All right.
And Terry, you're a muffin seller. That's
Okay.
your thing. Not very successful business at this point. Keith is the ambassador for a non-named country.
Okay, for an unnamed country. He's the ambassador. Okay.
And you would like to export to his country.
Okay.
That's
all
your
right.
goal.
Okay, that's my goal. Okay, good. All right. Okay.
And I'm trying to exit this conversation, or I'm trying to...
Well,
What's my...
well,
I don't think that this food product is not in your country, and you don't see the need for it at this point.
Got it.
Okay.
All right.
All right?
All right.
I'm going to introduce both of you. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Ambassador, I would just like to introduce you. This is Terry. He's the muffin guy
Huh.
Hi,
that I
Keith.
was speaking to you about.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi. Yeah?
I've been to your country a couple of times.
Oh, yeah? What'd you like about it? What was most memorable?
I really liked water skiing. Have you been water skiing? Have you been to that one place where all the water skiing is?
Yeah, our national anthem is about water skiing,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, I really like to do all that water skiing stuff. I like to spend my time on the beach. A lot of times. In fact, it was this one time when I was young and I was on the beach. And
Terry, that's amazing. I remember it's a really great country, and I know you have an opportunity to go there. I think the ambassador might actually like to hear a little bit about the muffin products.
oh, okay.
Give a couple of chance. Yep.
All right. Well, you know, the muffins that I have, they're all organic, by the way. Everybody loves a good muffin. Surely everybody in your country would love a great muffin, wouldn't they?
Well, soggy as we are, muffins have not lasted too long in my water skiing country.
But, well, I still think, though, that if you gave them a try, I mean, my muffins, they're water resistant, luckily. And they stay dry year round. I think this would be really something that you guys would be interesting. Maybe even if you could just, introduce a few people for me, that would be great.
Well, you guys certainly have a strong brand image, but let me tell you this. I got a meeting over there with Twinkies, Mr. Twinkies, and as soon as that's over, I think I can get back to you.
Why don't I do this, Terry? If you give me your details, I'll make sure that the ambassador gets them. And if his team or his food people want to follow up with you later on, I'm sure they'll be in touch with you. So why don't you pass it to me, and I'll take care of that.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Steve.
Works for me.
All right.
So the host won that conversation.
That's a perfect scenario right there. We had a lot of things going on. We had me, who was kind of not getting to the point. We had Keith, who was making a bad exit strategy, and we had Steve, who was facilitating good communication when things were going wrong. So I think that was a really good. I
think that many universities around the world should use this podcast.
just that very podcast right there.
At least that 30 seconds.
Excellent. Well, listen, Steve, thanks so much for coming in here today. We've run short on time. We could probably spend another whole episode here of our extended interviews going through some of the other things. But maybe you can just kind of encapsulate in a few sentences the importance of networking and really what your goals should be.
I think the goals are twofold. One, the goal is exactly what you want. You want something out of it, okay? You're looking to develop a network. You're looking to develop friendships. You're looking to develop a business, whatever. You've got to be clear about what you want. The second thing is you have to understand that the person that you're talking to may not want the same things that you want. Right. It's like dating, that person doesn't necessarily want to go out with you. Mm-hmm. You may have your goals, they have their goals. If the goals are aligned, great, you'll have a fantastic conversation. But understand that people don't necessarily want what you want, and just walk, be gentle. Walk away if it's not going to work out. Yeah?
Right.
And kind of the last thing about it is for people networking, oh, I can't network, I don't really know how to talk to people. Basically, the secret to me, as I learned, is that, just about everybody at any situation, anywhere, is kind of bored.
Yeah, right.
They would like someone interesting to come up and talk to them as well. So don't be afraid to talk to people, because I've never been upset because someone said hello to me.
Yeah, right. Right. And it's sometimes just as easy as saying hello sometimes.
That's about all it is.
Excellent. Well, we'll leave it right there on that note. Thanks so much, Steve, for coming in. We'll let you just put in a very quick plug here for the BCCT. Have you guys got any events coming up? Anything we should know about for the BCCT?
We've got a few things coming up. Basically, we have our annual football tournament coming up this weekend.
Okay.
It's at the European School. You're welcome to come down and watch. It'll be on the soccer fields there. April the 15th, we have our next networking session.
Okay, there you go.
So that's, we do a monthly networking get-together at the Cheers Bar at the Hyatt, which will start about 6:30. And everybody's welcome. Come and look for me. My name's Stephen Parker. I will always be nice to you.
As outlined right by this radio program right there. Thanks, Steve. Steve Parker, Executive Director of the BCCT, the British Chamber of Commerce here in Taipei. We'll check in with the Killers before we get to the top of the hour. We'll find news there. And before that, I'll let you know exactly what your theme for requests is here today. This is All the Things I've Done. It's the Killers on ICRT.
And that is it for the show today. This has been another extended interview on The Morning Show. We bring one of these out every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. You can find a whole bunch of them online at the ICRT website and on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Have a bunch more there. You can also find many, many, many other Taiwan Talk interviews that will be the shorter, newsier variety. If you are listening through iTunes, please do take a second to leave a comment or rate the show while you're there. Really do appreciate it. Helps other people discover the show. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want to hear about new Taiwan Talk or other ICRT programming that we have coming out. Or if you want to just let me know what's on your mind, give me some feedback on the shows that we do here. Really appreciate that as well. Thank you for listening to the show. For ICRT and The Morning Show, I'm Keith Menconi. See you next time.